Hello, it's Missladypetal here. You're looking at July, week 2. The theme, the prompt for this week, for our journaling Krazy Island style, is summer in the sun. So I love the desert outback of Australia, and for me, I absolutely love Dorothea McKellar's poem, I Love a Sunburnt Country. She actually wrote this poem in England, and it is considered to be a little bit of a romantic notion of Australia, but she grew up as the daughter of a rich pastoralist, and of course in that time, around the time in the late 1800s, early 1900s, rich families would send their children over to Europe to do tours, and they would go over with chaperones and their families and go and do England for 12 months. And Dorothea actually wrote this poem while she was in England. The way that I approached this page was I found this amazing photograph of a portion of the Australian desert, and it was dominated by this large rock face at the front, and then it had some more smudged and muted landscape behind it. So the whole picture was dominated by that and the beautiful vibrant sunset sky. So I actually did this a little bit opposite. So I started off with a very washed down acrylic washes, and I did blues behind, purples, I used pinks, oranges and yellows, and I also used Payne's grey, and I sponged them across and did some underpainting of some of those darker colours, and then I started melding some of those lighter colours over the top, using some paints that were opaque and some that were more translucent, and then making sure that I got some nice ridging and sweeping across. You get that general sense that you sweep across, and the whole sky was painted with sponges and wet baby wipes. And I used very little. Right at the end, I swept some watercolours across with a big brush, just to help that movement of the sky going across like that. But other than that, that whole thing was done with sponges, and so was the background of underneath. So I used a lot of strong oranges underneath the tones here, both for the rock, the yellows and the oranges, and they were also watered down acrylics. Now, something I did a little bit next, and I tested it to see whether it would adhere, I then started using watercolour over the top of the washed down acrylics. Now, the washed down acrylics, some of them are a little bit, you can see, some of them, you can just see that hint of a shine, see that? And so I used a little bit of matte medium in there to actually dull it down, give the paint some grip so that the watercolours could adhere over the top. And I started laying down darker panes of grey and also neutral tints in these watercolours, and there's just quite a few layers in that to get the ridging, to make it stand out, but then blend it out into those deep colours, because there was some shadows forming in the photograph that I saw. And this is not a literal representation of that photograph, it's really more of an abstract, or my interpretation of the photograph. It's enough that you know that definitely I've painted the photograph, but it's not exactly perfect. I then started putting in some rock features around the same time here with some darker neutral and Payne's grey in the tints. And right at the end, after I'd finished adding all those additional elements in to shade them down, I added in a little bit of green and did some very abstract bushes that were kind of in the foreground, but the background was all shaded and still dark colours and dusty, and starting to deepen into those violets that you can see in some of the undertones, going into those beautiful mauves and violets that often you get at sunrise and sunset in the Australian desert. So that's my take on this week's. I absolutely loved this whole thing. I was so excited when I attempted it. It's one of my favorite journal pages. I did a double spread because I wanted to do this whole thing justice. As the last bit, I did some dark, I wanted to put the stanza of the poem that was really pertinent to me, and that is Dorothy's best known stanza, and just highlighted it in gold at the end to make it stand out from the background there, from the sky. Alright, that's my Journaling Crazy Island style prompt this week, my take on it. If you'd like to subscribe, the links for all of that are down below. And I can tell you now, the teachers are amazing, and you know, how would you like to be able to learn to do something like this? I was very excited when I did it, and we do beautiful sorts of artworks and simple. We range from intermediate, from beginner to intermediate to advanced. I would class this in a little bit more of the advanced, but I loved doing it, and I love teaching it. All right, ciao from Missladypetal for this week.